Good morning or good afternoon, depending upon where you are in the world. I hope that you are well. Okay, 2022 market turmoil. It has been well documented on just about every single media outlet that you are possibly going to look at. 2022 has not been a good one for markets. Some of the statistics. Okay, so the first 6 months of the year, that was the calendar year from January to the end of June, it was the worst calendar start to a year over that 6 month period for a balanced portfolio, that's 60% equities and 40% bonds, since the 1930s. So that is a really long time ago, isn't it? Looking at the worst start for 90 years. It was the worst 6 month calendar start to a year for the S&P 500 since the 70s. So again, looking back quite a long time before we see anything as bad as that. Also, what we've seen in the last couple of weeks, and I'm sitting here in October 2022, is the S&P 500 hit a low of just over 25%. So it's fallen more than 25% from its peak, which was in January this year, to reach new lows. For the Nasdaq, it's even more than that, almost at 35%. There haven't been many asset classes that have actually risen during that period. So if we look at the last year, pretty much the only things that have really materially risen are obviously the US dollar as an asset class in its own right, and then also energy. And there's a myriad of reasons for that, a key one being Putin's actions in the Ukraine. Okay, so what does this mean? Because a lot of people are nervous, a lot of people are panicked, and a lot of people are, wondering when the end is in sight. And we're getting asked that quite a lot, as you can imagine. Okay, the first point that we have to remember, and it's easy to say but statistically true, is that markets do recover. If we look back historically, markets have recovered and gone on to set new highs 100% of the time. They have never failed to do that. We just don't know exactly when it's going to happen, but at some point it will. I'll put some stuff on the screen now so that you can see, but there have been falls of 25% or more before, albeit not many of them. And if we look at those falls, then historically, within 12 months, on most occasions, we have recovered all of those losses. Within 3 years, on pretty much all occasions that it's ever happened before, we have recovered all of those losses. So the thing to remember in the back of your mind is that these things do end. It's not to say that it can't get worse before it gets better. That's obviously something that can happen, but ultimately they do end, losses are recovered, and it will be rosy again in the future at some point. Second thing to remember, and a really difficult one, especially when things are falling, but economic markets and stock markets are not correlated. They never have been. Economic markets look backwards when a recession is called. It's 2 negative quarters of negative GDP, in a row. So those quarters have already happened. Stock markets are looking forwards. They're a price discounting mechanism of future events. Okay, so they're not correlated. Finally, what I really want you to try and remember, and this is what we've been doing with clients a lot recently, is that retirement and retirement planning is a process of drawdown. You do not hit, your 60th birthday, or 55th birthday, or 65th birthday, however it is you're doing your planning. You do not hit that mark in the sand and go, right, I need to cash out everything. You don't. You need, at that point, that first year's income, don't you? Or monthly income, or however you're going to do it. And the rest is going to remain invested and capture that recovery that is, almost historically anyway, happened every single time. So it is going to happen again. So remember that process of drawdown. And I really want people to focus on that. What assets do you have at the moment? Where are they? How are they structured? And what is the most sensible way of drawing down on them over a 20, 30 year period? That could be from an investment perspective, it could be from a taxation perspective, it could just be from the fact that you have heavily invested assets at the moment, and obviously they're not going to perform fantastically well in the last 12 months, but then you might have quite a lot of cash as well, which maybe is your safety net. So let's look at those assets, understand them, and understand how that drawdown works. do not forget to include things like state pensions or income generation tools like property or whatever it might be, and really pull it together and see how we can phase that drawdown properly, which should hopefully reduce nervousness around invested assets at the moment. So in summary, 1, they do recover, they have done every single time before. 2, generally it doesn't take that long. That's not to say that it can't get worse before it gets better, but it generally doesn't take too long in the grand scheme of things. 3, economic markets and stock markets are not correlated. Try to remember that. I know it's difficult when things looking as they are at the moment. And 4, remember it's a drawdown. Plan that drawdown. What pot is going to pay you what and when? That would then give you some comfort in that the rest can remain invested in order to capture the upside when it eventually comes. I hope that was useful. Please do get in touch if you want us to help with that drawdown planning. It's basic timeline planning for finances, really useful for people to go through, and hopefully makes you feel a bit more comfortable about the situation that you're in at the moment. Have a great week.